Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Dr. Heather Good. I'm on faculty at the Da Vinci Institute. With me this afternoon, we have Ms. Lita Curry, who will be drawing and giving us feedback. We have Mr. Percy Koji as our guest speaker and Ms. Bongiwe Jalai as our doctoral student. What is coming across your radar that you're curious about at the moment? I've been looking around and I've seen some interesting things. There's definitely some things going on in the world of business, in the world of people. And I recently watched a couple of National Geographics that got me intrigued about new things. So some of our African history has come up. So I've been interested to talk about some of those things. What's on your radar as things that are making you curious right now? I know a lot of people are watching Wakanda and looking at the history of Africa north of us. Dewald, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I read an interesting article on mindfulness and how it assists in making difficult binary decisions. But the interesting thing is they use an instrument, and incredibly, the instrument's name is Lucifer. So I'm not sure if that's appropriate for a measure of attention or attention span.
Sure, dear Walter. Yes, mindfulness is something I've been looking at as well. I was listening to a podcast about asset framing and how the way we speak about people, communities, and organizations really actually affects our interactions with them. So I've got that on my list to do some more research about that. I don't know if anybody else has come across that.
If I may come in. No, I didn't come across that yet. But in what I'm curious about is IFOs. So previously there were UFOs. Now they are identified foreign objects. So
and they're still foreign. Goodness me.
Yes. They are
I haven't heard about that.
But foreign objects and the research around it. So in terms of curiosity, though, to come closer home, and when I say home, on the African continent specifically, I'm reading up and I watch quite a few of the science programs about unexplained phenomena, and we should know who William Shatner is, and with these physicists, they try to look at unexplained phenomena, but I think even they get things wrong at times, because through reading, I've come across research which shows that the world is wrong about some things about the origins of certain people, ancient people, and the world is wrong in the sense that when it comes to Celtics, the Celts, it was believed that they came from that part of Europe, which is Norway, that end, and they've come down and eventually settled in largely in Ireland. And so the Celtic population is seen to have originated there. The new research, shockingly, is showing, no, that is not the origins. The origins are from North Africa.
Okay, I hadn't gone that far south. Gosh.
Yeah, so that is really intriguing me, and I'm reading in that direction and trying to find more and more evidence. But there's good evidence in terms of this is well researched. It's not popular things. It's things where they look at artifacts and what was found in these places and what the Celts were like. So there's good evidence to begin to think differently just about a population, a particular grouping, and where their origins were. So we may have closer connections with Ireland than we think.
Yes, Paul, I understand also some of the genetic population research is surprising people with how their family histories have shifted, not just the population histories. So, yes, interesting. Dr. Claudia, you're asking if can curiousness be mistaken for concern or with concern?
Yes, I'm just listening to Prof. Singh. I don't know whether to be more curious now, Prof. Singh, or whether to be concerned.
No, look, I don't think it's good to be concerned in the sense that we are curious and interested, but I don't think it's something to worry about.
Yes. Janet says she's still curious about how leaders are developing organizations in the context of change, complexity, and conflict. Yes, I'm also curious, Janet, as how we got to the narrative of that individuals build organizations. I'm not sure anybody can do it alone anymore at all. Gosh. Interesting, Janet. I'm expecting you to put a doctorate proposal in then, hey? For those of you who don't know, Janet recently graduated with her master's. Zingai, I'm sure you can be curious about your levels of curiosity and what intrigues you. I was recently just on the subject of Africa watching the investigation into the Lighthouse of Alexandria. So fascinating how they are scanning the boulders on the seafloor now and reconstructing them to give a shape of what buildings once stood there. And it's fascinating stuff. And some of the things that we can still learn from. Lita, that's meta-curiosity. Oh, well done. Right up there with metacognition. Well, now that we know where you guys are and what's crossing your radar, welcome again to Curiosita, the place that we hope we can have some interesting conversations about what's happening in organizations. And I'm going to invite Mr. Percy Koji on camera. He is the founder of the TWC Group, and he's here today to talk to us about the green economy in the 21st century. And Percy, I'm really looking forward to this talk because I want to definitely support more environmental initiatives, and I think we're not doing enough. So I'm curious to hear about what you have to say to us. Let me just fill people in a little bit on your background. You are Africa Economic Leadership Council's co-founder and chairman. You've been regarded as an astute businessman for some time and with more than 15 years of experience in tourism, construction, property development, agriculture, mining and renewable energy. You've definitely been involved in community engagement. You are also the founder of an NGO which develops young leaders, and you've got public service experience. So you've really been on both sides of the South African spectrum. So you've seen a lot of leadership. You are looking at challenging leaders to maximize the opportunities they seek to grow their businesses and help us build a flourishing African economy. But I like the idea of doing that sustainably. So Percy, over to you. What have I left out? And welcome to our stage today.
Well, first of all, good morning. Thank you very much, Dr. Good. And good morning, everyone. Greetings from Venezuela. It's exactly around 9:42 now in Venezuela. I arrived here on Thursday last week on the invitation of the tourism minister to come and help them, give them strategy on how to develop a much more sustainable green economy. So this topic came at the right time, and where one is able to actually indulge on the concept. But thank you very much. I mean, and I hope that things are better in South Africa and that we won't have load shedding before we finish our conversation, because I believe it will disrupt, everything that we are trying to do. As per Dr. Good's sort of introduction, I originally come from Northwest Province in South Africa. Formerly, back in the days, it was known as Bophuthatswana, now the Northwest Province. So I come from a village called Taung, which is right in the middle between the Northern Cape and the Northwest. We're right in the border. I think, first of all, I would like to define, why is it important that we have to focus on green economy? I believe that green economy is one of the most critical aspect of, the entire economy, if I have to say. For example, I flew in from Johannesburg, which took me more than 2 days, and I think the mode of transport that was used was an airplane. So airplanes are one of the biggest polluters in this world. They actually damage the environment with the excessive, they release a lot of carbon monoxide, which is dangerous for the environment. And I think this is why a lot of aviation sector industry experts are trying to come up with policies that are quite helpful to the environment, that will help to reduce the carbon emission, because carbon emission has a detrimental effect on the environment, be it that in the ocean, in us as human beings, the quality of air that we breathe. I think about last year, in the middle of the year, if I remember correctly, South Africa was hit with one of the most sort of dangerous climatic conditions in KwaZulu-Natal province, where we've seen a lot of people losing homes. So in most of the time, our policymakers haven't really paid attention to this green aspect of the economy, which is quite important, but also the ecological scarcities, which is quite good for the sustainable development without degrading the environment. So the importance of us as a country, as South Africa, or as the world, focusing on the ecological economics is beyond the word important, because we not only does it have an effect on our, like for example, South Africa is faced with some difficulties with generating green energy for the longest period of time since the government of the day took over in 1994. There's never been sufficient effort to look at the green economy. We've always focused on using coal as the only form of generating energy. Now, from a private sector perspective, the main objective is to try and encourage green initiatives as much as I can, or as much as we can, those who are participating from a business perspective, but also institutions like yours, platforms like this are quite important, as they provide an opportunity to engage and further come up with different solutions and find ways to collaborate in such a way that the collaboration has a positive impact on the environment and the people around. So tourism is actually one of the most critical sectors. The question we should be asking from now on is, are we doing enough to support green tourism? Are we doing enough to support the efforts that come with different types of tourism related opportunities, whether it's in South Africa or across the world? So it's relatively becoming more and more important on a day-to-day. We're also coming out of, there was a COP 27 in Egypt, that focused on green initiative. In August, we've had hydrogen, the likes of hydrogen energy, which focuses on green initiatives. So in a nutshell, are we doing enough to influence policy in South Africa's economy to make sure that green becomes the future? Which is such a critical question, because I mean, where I am right now, as previously indicated, I'm currently in South America. And previously, the government depended heavily on it's a country that is rich in oil, but they've been going through a very difficult time with the American government sanctioning them and putting, an economic sanction on their entire economy, which is quite interesting. Now they are looking at new ways of growing their economy without depending on oil, meaning going green. So green is not just a new term, but it is the new wealth into the future of any economy. So I think it's very important to also spend a little bit of time to understand, I like the question that Professor Singh was asking earlier on about, in most of the time, a lot of governments are willing to do new things, but the question is, are they capable? It's one thing to be willing, it's another to be capable. Those are two different things. So you might be willing to do something, but you are not capable of doing it. I think it's the same problem we faced from the state capture report. So from a governance perspective, are these governments that we are engaging capable?
Percy, I must admit, I've been wondering whether ESCOM is going to encourage us all to go into solar power. So I think that might inadvertently encourage some green revolution. I see there's a hand up. Is that Gibson?
The colleague who presented, he made a very important point to say there's a difference between wishing to achieve something and being able to achieve something, which takes me to the creative tension that exists in most of the governance and management in the world. Why I'm raising this, as much as we want to satisfy everybody to deliver energy to everybody, be it green energy, be it fossil fuel-based energy. I had a statistic. I heard about a statistic yesterday that for every child that is born in the world, only for every person, 5 people born, only 2 people dying, meaning that our population in the world is exploding. How possible is it to, no matter how innovative we are, to satisfy everybody without doing something to counterbalance the other dynamics? That's the question.
So I think that's interesting. And Gibson, I'm also seeing Janet's comment. How do we reconcile green priorities with social priorities in an African context? So if I understood correctly, you're asking what's possible, and then how do we balance conflicting needs?
The biggest challenge that we face, be it in South Africa or in Venezuela, anywhere in the world, is the political will to a certain extent. Because if you look at, if you compare or look at, the effort that every country is making to be progressive, the challenge is not always, the implementation. The challenge is always certain obstacles that are in the way, which becomes a compromise. So it's the reverse of what we are talking about. And we can, for example, Mother Nature dictates that if we take care of the environment, for example, the environment will vice versa take care of us as a human, as a people. But in this instance, we're talking the challenges around implementation of what's been discussed. It's not a question of whether or not we can do it and will it compromise the reverse in the process, but we move forward with the challenge of those who are not allowing us to implement, what we are trying to do. So I think it's in both ends. It's a very critical question because in the world that we live in, it has been proven time and again that from a more practical perspective, if only there was a sort of a will entirely, whether it's political, environmentally, the impact comes from us as human beings. It's a human interaction to the environment. So the results are coming as an act of what we are doing. So I think to your question, it is important that we consider everything that we do as a people, but from an implementation of policy point of view, it can be possibly done provided we have sufficient political will in most instances than others. Mm-hmm. Any other question?
So Percy, I'm seeing a comment from Dr. Claudia who challenges, do we need to balance in terms of compromise or do we need to harmonize? And I think when you talk about political will, I think I'm wondering, how do we make the green option, the environmentally friendly option, the human friendly options more desirable, more preferred? Paul, I'm seeing your hand.
Thank you, Heather. I'm going to ask Percy for his opinion here. So, and it arises from Gibson's question. So, I want to just say that, Percy, do you think, yes, we are talking at a global level and at a very high level in terms of, going green and green energy at that level, but to get this right, to get it working, it's to bring it down to the level of the people, because that's where the challenge lies for us. Like Gibson is pointing out, on the one side, you've got this burgeoning population, and on the other side, you're trying to satisfy the energy demands. But to come back to the issue is, if we want to look at changing the mindset, it's not only a mindset, it's about changing behavior. So my question to Percy is, do we have to start at the individual level, at the level of the human beings, rather than high up with systems, etc.? Because once we get it right at the bottom and people understand what do we mean by green, because it's not just green energy, it's about green thinking. We've got to change our thinking to green thinking. But I would say, to go even one step further, it's not about only what you think, thinking green, it's living green. So it affects everything. Do you think, whether it's nutrition, whether it's whatever you're looking at, we are saying go green, begin to live green. And so my question to you, Percy, is, should we focus on the bottom, at the masses first, to get this right? Thank you.
I think that's a very, very critical question. I mean, Prof is referring us taking, the high level concept down to the people. The answer is yes. I have a foundation where I have put through kids, about 10,000 kids in South Africa, and teaching green initiatives. For example, we have started, I have partnered with a company based in Australia, where we're doing green lights that are charged through solar energy, but not only because of, the load shedding issue, but we are trying to teach at primary school level the kids the importance of a green environment. What does it mean to us? Coming from the village in Taung in Northwest, where I grew up, what is it that I've learned while living in the city that I could take back to the village to teach the kids? And it is through the foundation, where we teach these young guys about the importance of not littering in the rivers, for example, making sure that we protect every part of the environment we live in. And this education doesn't have to be always in a formal sense, but being it in a formal sense is much better, because if it comes through a schooling system, then we are able to have a better impact, because, the learners are younger. As they grow into the system, they understand it better. And I think it's a very critical issue, because South Africa has never had, this. We're not teaching green economy. We haven't taught. One of my opportunities that I've had in Germany was going through a university called Fulda University. It's an industrialized university. They deal strictly with technical education. People with creative arts, researchers, and stuff like that. They're highly specialized. And one of the biggest things among opportunities I've learned was to take care of the environment, for example, how the water is recycled on campus directly. So that had an impact on me, because I grew up taking water from the river. We were picking up water using a wheelbarrow and the 25 liters to fill up from the river and take it across to our village at home. So what does that mean to me? It means that the water that we were taking has become such a critical aspect of who we are as a people, because we use the same water to cook. But back in the days, you would imagine we used to swim in the same river. Just next to it, we would get the water. So it's about also reflecting back to what we've learned over time on the importance of what we have, what we are exposed to. How can we look after it? What does it mean to us? And why should we take care of it? What does it mean to not only us, but to our children, you know? So I think that's quite important. Thank you very much. Any other question?
Percy. Percy, there's one more hand up from Peter, so I'm going to let Peter talk.
So the question is, Percy, on the are we convinced that we have enough information on the cost of green energy, particularly for the continent itself? You would know that, for example, you know, the turbines, those wings of the turbines, they are not long term, so they need to be replaced. And there is the sense that even the recycling those wind turbines can't be done at the moment on the current. So what happens if they have to be replaced? They have to be put on the ground or have to be, you know, stacked somewhere else and can't be recycled. So there's a cost to it. So the overall question is that as much as we believe that green energy is good for the continent, have we actually calculated, or are we aware of the cost it has on humanity in itself, particularly on the African continent, where most of some of these ingredients come from in terms of generating this type of energy?
I think, you know, that's a very, very valuable question. The answer is, you know, I'm going to make an example with your health. You know, your health, that as a human being, you have to eat healthy. That will only have an impact for you, not only from the beginning of your life until the end of your life. Now, whether you do it because you are exposed to the kind of food that you should eat, that's another issue. So why we haven't spent a lot of time understanding the importance of green economy, that's a different issue from South Africa's perspective, because the whole world has been living on that. While I was in Germany, I mean, as a student, we used to get paid to throw trash. Whether you bought a can of a drink, there were recycling bins that will give you €1 or something like that. So do we have enough information available? The information has always been available. Was our government willing to share this information to the people? I'm not quite sure, because it seems like we are only waking up to that now, whereas the rest of the first world has been doing it for so many years. So yes, we do need to invest a little bit on knowledge. We need to harvest enough information about what is it that we are doing currently, how best can we do it to improve on the existing systems. And in terms of the wind turbines, they actually they last for quite a long time. I mean, they are made out of steel. So as you know, steel can be recycled. So that shouldn't be much of a concern if we have systems in place to take care of such opportunities when they do arise. So the answer is yes, we need more information. We need to educate our people more about our oceans, and green does not necessarily apply only to energy. It applies to in tourism as well. When you fly, these airplanes are burning so much carbon dioxide. So to reduce carbon emission, they need to fly with engines that are using recycled energy, for example, which is quite good, because it means that they can fly longer, and the aircraft will be more healthy, and even vehicles, talking about building electric cars. So that applies to the entire ecosystem. And not only does it have a good impact on our lives, but also on our rivers, on our oceans, on the people, on where we stay, and etc.
Percy, thank you so much. As you've heard, and you might not have seen in the chat, there's several people who'd love to have you back and have a bigger conversation. So I think perhaps when you are in country, and maybe even face to face. So we'll explore some options with you, but thank you for your time and your persistence today.